Okay, but we'll go ahead and get started on our meeting. So welcome guests. And we'll start out with the approval of the agenda. Do you have any questions regarding the agenda?
I'll second it.
Second. First and a second. All those in favor say aye. We can do that again. I didn't. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Jenny, you want to take a minute though to go ahead and pass out?
Yeah, so as Jenny passes these out, we'll also load this on call to order. I'll get it first thing in the morning. It'll be a PDF. We always just think it's easier for you to work with an actual hard copy. So it's our 2022 budget. And then, so we have plans for December 16th, that half day. We'll present out on that. I would suggest, if you have any questions at all, feel free to start filtering those through me. That way we get a little chance to answer your question a little bit more thoroughly. Not overly, but if you do have questions, feel free to call me or just email me.
On that point, Brett, I would suggest if any director has a question and forward it to Brett, copy the other directors because it may be a duplicate question.
That's typically what
Everybody's in that loop.
I'll typically just forward out the answers to everyone.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. For that.
And then so if you go to dashboard under budgets, I'll put draft 2020 be underneath there. I just think it's easier to probably go through it in paper.
All right, so the next topic is for your information. Assuming everybody's had a chance to questions for this.
I don't know whether it's Brett or Jenny. Page 3, Brownstown Supply Special Equipment for $89,000.
Is that, no, it's not you guys.
Check register.
It's Transformers, yeah. It's pretty much all Transformers. Some of that is, Dale, we're working on the, right across from, I guess it's to the west of the high school. There's a new subdivision in going there. So there's 27 houses, 27 plots on the first phase, and there's 2 more phases coming in. So some of that was that.
I do have a question under the open action items. Thank you for the list of those contractors that I emailed. So the nice law firm LLP is Wickens.
They changed the name. Actually, so Robert merged with the guy's last name's Nice. So that's where the name comes from. They merged together.
So, and the reason I sent the email, just to go back, I know we approved the auditors and prior board approved the survey and ballot, but our policy 1-6 and everything I've learned at IEC is that the board approves the attorney or attorneys used. And since I've been on the board, they've not been approved. Has it been approved prior years that I wasn't involved in? Or how does the attorney?
I know those questions have been brought up in the past, and that was, I think, the assumption that.
And that's par Richie, not par Ricky, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I mean, it was done some time ago. It was prior to me having.
So par Richie was approved, the Reed Dringer, like those get approved before they're used?
I don't remember having approved those specifically, but I thought we talked about, at least referenced the particular policy that you just mentioned, that management does have the opportunity to go ahead and use other resources as well, legal resources. So,
For operations, not anything to do with the board.
okay,
And we did not approve the nice law firm. And that has happened since this board's been elected.
Well, I saw the nice law firm on the check register, having no idea who it was, who kind of sparked. And then when we received this, it had Wickens in parentheses. Makes sense. However, it was never approved to go from Wickens to the nice law firm. You know what I mean? I'm just, if the board's going to approve or a policy, I mean, I just think that just to make it simpler going forward, we need to prove who we're using and or not as the board. Just to follow the policy.
Make that motion.
yeah, we can go ahead.
It should be to follow policies.
Make a motion to follow policy 1-6.
To approve that law firm.
I mean, it's really just to follow the policy. I don't know if there's a motion necessarily. The nice law firms kind of sparked my eye, because I'm thinking,
I don't know when that was done.
They changed their name like a couple months ago. We got an invoice that said the nice, and I ended up calling him and saying,
Wasn't Don Wickens our legal counsel, not Robert?
uh,
And if it was Wickens and we changed to the nice, isn't that a board decision?
I guess it just depends on the topic you're talking about. So I don't think like when we use Brian, that's mainly like HR issues, things that,
It says board governance.
yeah, they do board governance too.
Here, July.
I mean, all three of these, we should be getting quotes. We should have presentations and we should be making votes.
So I just want to let you guys know, when we go to these law firms, it's quite often. I mean, we have easement work, we have a lot of stuff, and that's operations.
and I'm not suggesting use or don't use them. I'm suggesting just follow the policy that the board needs to approve the law firms that are used, because that's the policy. I don't know if there's a motion that needs to be made, but I think the main thing is that we need to approve the law firms that are used. You as leaders know which law firms are going to be the best to suit the topic that you're using, whether it's HR or whatever. But I feel like, especially when it comes to anything to the board issue, everything I've learned at IEC from the very first one is the consultants, including the law firms, report to the board and the board should approve it. So either I'm hearing it the wrong way when I go to these classes, or we're just not following policy, or it's a little bit of both.
But whenever you guys have, so just like broadband, so you came to, we talked about it, you guys talked about it as a board, came to us and said, go get some bids. We go get bids and you guys decide, just like the audit firm, just like our cost of service study. It's no different on the lawyer piece of it too. Whenever the chairman decides to go get interpretation of a policy, because that's really what.
The chairman shouldn't be deciding that. The board should be deciding that.
On every single policy change that
Yes,
you're going to look.
That's the board's. It's not, there's a lot of questions that I have, that decisions have been made that I didn't even know they took place.
That's your guys' call. Policy stuff, it's not mine.
So based upon your question, Suzanne, or your response, are we in a place, I think, to Brian's point, to go ahead and
Make a motion to follow the policy?
make a motion to go ahead and use those particular legal firms?
I can say my two experiences with the current legal firm have not been good.
I would think it would also suit the topic served. I mean, maybe have one board attorney to represent the board, and then there may be different attorneys used upon board approval, depending on what the topic is.
Yeah, it's all topic driven. So you guys will not be,
And I'm not saying not use them, but let's, for example, in the CE, when there was a protest of election, CE committee, when Per Ritchie was assigned, who assigned her to do the CE committee instead of Wickens? Who made
We
that
did.
decision? Board did?
CEC,
Okay, the CEs, that committee did. Okay, so that would be board driven.
and that's the only attorney.
So the board should have a confirmation or choose which attorneys used.
And I'm not disagreeing with what you're suggesting. What if there's something that's extremely urgent? Do we have that opportunity to go ahead and approve it at a point in time? I mean,
Or if what it goes from Wickens law firm to the nice law firm and say there's 4 or 5 other partners that none of us know. Are we approving Wickens as in Don and Robert? Are we approving the law firm itself in general?
They just make a motion to use all three.
Policy's pretty vague as to
It's very
when
vague.
it's gonna happen and to what regularity. So these approvals could have been done eons ago. We just didn't know about it.
We've been asking since April.
That's okay. So that's why we're having the discussion right now and whoever just said that, if we want to approve them today, or you want to amend the policy to say we're gonna do it, review it every year or every 2 years. Okay, put some time frame around that because the policy is vague. I don't see what the big deal is. If you want to approve one or not approve one, let's do it.
I think it should be approved per attorney and or if a specific topic needs to be addressed, because I do think it's topic driven, what law firm you choose. I don't think it's not belittling one or the other, but there's certain topics you should probably have a different attorney for, but I think the board should be approving that.
But that would be getting into operational stuff, right? Like when you talk about
Board,
topics.
board driven topics.
It's more or less policies, I think, right? I mean, we'll use Wickens or Par Ritchie on a weekly basis, depending on what the topic is, we'll go to one or the other. I mean, if it's.
That's not board driven, that's,
Correct. It's not policy.
Now, do you have them both on retainer fee then?
No, we have no retainer fees whatsoever. I mean, maybe it's just a communication thing that, I mean, when you guys say, go do this, then you need to tell me who to go do it by. I mean, I think everything that we've been asked to go do from the board, you guys have decided who it is. I can't think of an example where we haven't.
I think of what we just went through with the executive session. There was questions and concern who our legal counsel was, and we never did get it answered.
We suggest it's all three of these.
I don't support that.
That's your guys' call.
I would like to see the subcommittee put together like the policy states. We get actual data, we make good decisions.
I know we had talked last month regarding
Requested it to be on this month's agenda.
that specific policy. It's not on the agenda. Unfortunately, I didn't remember that, Jeff, so I apologize for that. We can put it on next month and get through it, or we can go ahead and come up with something now if you guys are ready to go forward with it.
I would like to go forward with the policy, have a subcommittee.
And when you say the policy, so you don't want to amend the policy, you want to use the policy as it written.
And I think that's what should have been used.
I don't believe we have a subcommittee or a committee in place to support that process, but is there anybody that would?
Is there an example of where the board hasn't followed policy? That's where I'm really confused.
We never approved the nice law firm. I didn't even know about it until I seen it.
It's the same thing as Wickens.
Is it Don Wickens or Robert Wickens?
It's both. They're all for one attorney.
But it never was individually Don Wickens or Robert Wickens, was it? It was, it wasn't.
We know this group.
I think it's been so long, they probably can't, I mean, can you
I
really
was
track it
always
down?
told.
And we didn't hire Earl Ridlin.
No, you hired an auditing
We
firm.
hired London Whitty and Earl Ridlin was the auditor. I mean,
They're going to decide.
in a right of succession, you're not, I wouldn't think you're ever going to say it's got to be that person for various reasons. If that person leaves the firm, does it void that contract or void that relationship? I wouldn't think it would. We as a board, I think, have the right and the obligation to review anything we don't want to continue. But as a matter of routine, I wouldn't think it would violate or void that relationship.
But I don't know of an instance where you guys told us to go get legal attorneys and you haven't decided anything for any of these consultants. You have decided all of them.
I think part of it stems from not knowing whether it's Don Wickens or Wickens Law Firm, or how long has it been since the REMC,
I think it's all three.
but since the board approved.
Make a motion to approve all three. I'm confused.
So in an effort of time, can we do this in executive session as far as a board attorney possibly? Can we have that discussion tonight?
I'm good.
That'd be okay.
I'm good with that.
and the rest of them just stand for now.
Are there no other consultants besides those? Don't we have an engineering consultant? Isn't insider information considered a consultant?
That's the confusing, like, what do you mean by a consultant? Like, I asked Steve that question because I didn't know what you guys wanted for this.
Didn't we just have a list of all consultants?
I can give you a vendor list that's 36 pages.
I don't need a vendor list of consultants. We have an engineering consultant, insider information does surveys. Correct?
What's the definition between a consultant and a vendor?
Okay, maybe we need to have that discussion in the executive session also, Steve.
Because we've pulled the vendor list and I don't know what the difference between a consultant and a vendor really is.
The consultants are the ones that are supposed to be reported to the board for policy 1.6, the list.
These are the only ones that I know of.
That's what I was requesting.
Yeah,
On B1, it does kind of specify which consultants the board has any authority.
which are
And
the,
it says their services are essential for audits of records and account, legal opinion on policy, conducting surveys, analysis of management practices, or to make engineering studies. However, the general manager will be responsible for recommending the best qualified individual. So I think it is pretty well.
I agree. And that's what we based this off of here, was that policy. When I went to Steve and asked you, are you looking for all vendors? Are you looking for vendors with contracts? Are you looking, what are you actually looking for here? And what Steve reported back was, well, the ones in this policy, where these are the ones that I know of in the policy. And the reason I put the NRTC broadband is because that's an engineering study that the board asked for. So therefore you all should pick who that is. If they're doing engineering work for us, that's management, that's me. But if you guys are asking for something to be done like a broadband study, it's an engineering study, it comes to you. Same as the cost of service, the auditors, you guys decided.
Conducting surveys?
If it's a survey that you guys do, yes. If it's a survey that you are doing to conduct, if you come to me and say, Brett, we want to gather this information, then for sure we would ask you, who do you want to use and did. But if it's something that we're doing survey data, which Inside Information does a lot of survey stuff from a management standpoint all year.
All right, well, we'll continue the
Executive session, attorney discussion.
Attorney is the one that's, could be better to assume. But I really think the only thing would be like policy. And when you talk about policy, it's not just one firm, I would assume. If I come to the board and say, here's a policy that we need to get updated, it's going to depend on what it is. I mean, if it's specific to the co-ops, you're probably going to use a specialized. I mean, I don't know, right? So it all depends. I think you have to take that into consideration. I do think you need one person that this is the co-op attorney for general business, but then you have specialties that come in too.
continue that in executive session. Any other questions for Brad for your information?
I just got a question on back to the check registry. Who all do we have for tree trimmers? Is it several different companies that are contracted through us? We got something.
Yeah, so we have, Ashland does our like hot spotting and tree tickets. And then we've got, Electricom, Townsend. And then that's it right now, but we have done work with, gosh, I can't remember their name.
Nelson years ago.
Nelson,
Electrical, Nelson,
H&L.
Aslan, D&T's their apples.
Do we have a contract with them to do so much line a year?
Yep.
Or do they just,
We send out a bid package play every year. We give them maps and we basically say, here's the maps, miles of lines, go, they'll actually write it all out. Because when we do our bid work, we want everything clear, right? So they'll go out and actually write the miles out. Actually, we're doing that process right now. So we bid it out to usually 3 to 4 to 5, it depends. Some companies will come back and say, hey, we're not interested in bidding. We sent it out this year to H&L, Townsend, Electricom, Ashburn, and we didn't send it to Nelson, so we sent. So we'll send out the bid packages, they'll return the bid packages, and then we basically just go by pretty much cost.
Having some discussion with the members on this. So when concerned about time, so they're bidded out, so they're gonna get paid whether the job should take them 2 hours, and it's taking 10
Correct.
or whatever.
They get paid by the actual circuit. Period.
Okay. What about,
Well, no, let me clarify, sorry. On our hot spotting, so if a member calls in and says, I got a tree that's in the power line, or I got a dead tree, they'll call in, we'll create a service ticket. That service ticket goes to Chris and Jim, and then they'll go out, take a look at it, and if it's something that we do need to take care of, they create that service ticket for our hot spotting ticket crew, which is Ashland right now.
okay,
And they are time material because there's no specific bid, right?
okay, that's fine. That brings up a good point from certain individuals saying that's who it was.
Yep.
A particular job should have taken a couple hours. And he's saying, should have took, he says, I'm looking job and not even a professional tree trimmer. Conservative giving him 4 hours. He said it took 30 to 40 man hours of them guys sitting there, and he said it was not, things weren't even cleaned up, cut, it just wasn't.
Have them call in, because typically what we'll do is anytime we have someone that calls, or we'll handle it. We'll send Jim and Chris out and take a look at it. But
Okay.
one thing we get calls all the time on tree trim, not just tree trimmers, but even sometimes our crews. And these guys have to work a lot different than, a farmer that's out cutting their own tree, right? So there's paperwork they got to be doing. A lot of times somebody will call in and say, hey, your tree trimmers are sitting in the truck. We'll call or we'll stop out there, because we do surprise audits and things like that on our vendors. And a lot of times they're doing the stuff that they have to do that people don't necessarily think about all the time. Plus they have to do setup, tear down, they have to do job briefs. It takes them usually a lot longer. I'm not saying there's never issues, but definitely have them call in, because what we'll do is we'll send Jim and Chris out and have a little powwow. Yep. But yeah, if it's that company, and it could change next year depending on what the bids come in. But yes, those are time and material folks. The folks that are doing and the only reason it's time and material, Clay, is because we don't know where they're going to go.
I get that part. On some of the things that are just set up that this is what you gotta do.
No, great question.
Any other questions?
I will say too, we are, we're Jason's area. Yeah, mainly in your
Now, and
area.
I need one of those things for the front of my skid loader that they're running. I think it's awesome. No, seriously, when they're done, I'm gonna be able to mow those places now. So guess what that means? RMC's not gonna have to do it again. It's, that thing is, that's.
Check your area too. We're fielding a lot of phone calls. There are some trees that have been there for 30, 40 years that are growing in the lines directly underneath. I actually went out and visited one on 421 today. It was in your area. So I would not be surprised if you guys are going to field some calls, because we're getting to some of the circuits that, number one, they're really, really bad. And number two, we're on the back end of this reclaim. So some of this stuff has not been touched in years, right? And that makes it a difficult conversation, because you're going in there saying, I'm going to cut this tree that hadn't been trimmed in 10 years. And we're cutting the thing down. So I would not be surprised if get some calls for tree trimming. And if you want, I can have Rachel, my suggestion is have them call in. Because we have a process that we escalate the phone calls, and when it gets to a certain point, me and Pat, like we just did this morning, we actually had someone come into the front office, and Pat and I took off out there to their place and kind of went over it with them and ended up, it was fine, but, it's definitely, we're in your two areas, which hadn't been cut in a long time, so you will be filled with phone calls, I'm
No
sure.
complaints so far, but that, where they're running that deal on the skid loader after they're done, I mean, shouldn't have to go back there for a long time.
That's the whole point of reclaim.
While we're on the subject, my neighbors, that trees on the other side of the road, they're big ash trees.
Ed.
I think that, the helmet, I'm not sure if he's came in and talked to you about it.
I don't know. I don't see all those.
Okay, well, what it is there's 4 and 6 of them that if they're leaning to where they would take out the line. But on the other side of the road, and all he wants done is lay down in his pasture. He'll take care of it. He just wants to lay down. He ain't got it.
Either text me the location or have them call in and create a service ticket and we'll,
It's on the corner of 120 East and 300 North.
want to say it again, 120 East and
120 East, 300 North. And it's the north side. And that corner would be the northwest side,
you say there's approximately 3, 4.
6. I would think 8, but, these are old ash trees.
I'm asking. And can you say a name?
Pardon me?
You say a name?
Oh, yeah, Dale Helmick. Yeah. All he wants them down, and he wouldn't care if he took them down just 10, 15 feet from the ground so he could take the stumps out.
I'll go ahead and put the ticket in. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, if you receive any calls, have them call in.
Based on for your information.
We are.
Matt, if you go to G for me, I just want to make sure. So right now, we're looking at the 2020 operating margins was close to 1.1 million at this for year to date. Right now, we're at almost 1.4 million. So last year, I made the motion because we were approximately 360,000 difference from the prior year to reimburse those facility charges, which came to about 306,000. I don't have the exact, he estimated a little bit higher. Right now, our difference is 311,000. Do you foresee that year-to-date actual changing drastically? Or is that an opportunity for us to get that reduced and give some of our members money back now instead of waiting 30 years for capital credits to be up that high?
I think our margins are probably, when you say they're gonna maintain power.
So based on the difference, we are up 311,000 higher.
It's back in 2020, because it's too late to get it on the bill print.
Okay, so last year we did the facility charges, which is around 306,000. We're looking like we're up right now 311,000. So I would like to make the motion again this year to reduce our actual amount and reimburse our individuals, our members, the facility charges.
You're talking 1 month.
1 month of facility charges. Last year, what they gave me the approximate of a 350, it ended up being 306,000. Right now, we're up 311,000. The facility charges have stayed the same, correct?
Yeah.
So those are really approximate numbers we can stick with to reduce our amount.
I'll second the motion.
One thing I would say is we don't have any of the, right? There's some big cost stuff coming through, right? Because we don't have, you guys don't have it now.
December payable January, right? Because we won't be able to do it now. It would be the soonest we could do it to be.
I don't know,
When are the,
you have to give NISC so many months' notice to get it on a bill print.
So how did we get it done last year in November?
Did we talk about it earlier?
We decided earlier,
October, we talked about, I believe it was made in November. So it's too late to reimburse that now?
I'd have to ask Crystal.
it's too late to get it on the December bill that's going out in a week.
Next week. Yeah, billing happens next week.
So it won't affect your 21 income statement.
So we're at almost 1.4 million.
But that's not to end of year. I mean, we still got a lot of right of way stuff.
What would it take to give them a check then? What would the cost of issuing a check be? It might be a pain, but what's the cost?
Mailing, paper, envelopes,
But if we write the check,
bank charges for every check that clears the bank.
Well, that would be,
That's a lot of money just to. We do it,
If we do that, what's the mechanism? What's the criteria for how we're going to distribute it? Because when we did last year, the service charge, I believe, I voted against it simply because, not because I don't want to give the money back, but I don't like when we have a mechanism in place, creating a new mechanism on an ad hoc basis to do something.
why don't you just let the capital credit flow through and pay it back 20, you can do that January, February. Pay it back to the new revenue.
It doesn't reduce our margins. The capital credits will still remain that high, correct?
No. So if you,
still pay it back.
you can pay it, the whole point of a capital credit is whatever margin you have at the end of the year, right? You have to pay back, but it doesn't mean you have to pay it back 30 years. You could pay it back in January. Hypothetically, you could pay it back in January for the 2021 members.
Aren't we required to pay back half of the oldest year?
For a special.
so we could do a special bill credit then in January or facility charge. I'll give it back and reduce the amount.
Want to reduce the capital credit, though, you want to do a special capital.
So how do we keep it from going into capital credits? And we've talked about this the last 3 years, and I think at one time you wanted to start talking about this in June, which I 100% agree.
Jason did say that.
We need to do this sooner.
No, I totally agree, but here's another year that nothing happened.
Yeah, but these last
These numbers, do what?
These last 2 years.
No, these numbers are predictable.
The other thing is
This last month.
with your,
Last month, we were down 500,000 compared to this month.
I just noticed the increase of our operating margins. So I'm delayed on getting it out. I just feel like paying it back now to our members currently versus 30 years.
But you can't, you can do that January.
we did the special one, we did select the previous year. We did the
A portion of it.
coronavirus, we did,
We
that's
did,
right.
Yeah.
Because we are ahead of the 30 years, so we have flexibility to do that, correct? So we can say, we're gonna pay this, we're gonna retire these capital credits, but it's gonna be 2021 and the balance of 1996 or whatever.
Come January, February, all you have to do is say, we want to do a special retirement of capital credits to our 2021 members.
But we could have given, we should start looking at this much earlier.
And
And
we
we,
wanna do these kinds
yes,
of things.
and we need much more accurate financial numbers than what we've been receiving.
So I don't think they're.
The LEs fluctuate way too much. And up until 3 months ago, we were borrowing 1.6 million. So no, I don't think that's accurate.
We got $167,000 credit in our, I mean, that's easy to say, but I think with the credit insurance that no one could predict and
From the trust.
from the trust,
Trust.
that's large. From the amount of transformers that you saw some of those coming through, right? That comes as a negative on your income statement. There's been some things with COVID that have come through that are not predictable. And I don't know if you want to add anything, but
It's impossible to pay facility charges. I was trying to reduce the net margins to reduce the amount of capital credits that we have to. So
but essentially you can do that through capital credits. Exact same.
amount of operation, the amount that we're going to retire is not going to be affected by it because it's going to stay that high.
No. So that one,
We can retire.
I mean, not retire, the amount that we're going to make our margins off, the amount that we're going to calculate it on.
Allocate,
Yes.
yes.
so it doesn't matter if it's a margin or if the only difference is it either comes off of your income statement or it comes off your balance sheet as equity. Essentially, it's no different.
At
It's the same thing.
if we do a special retirement in February, it'll have the same general effect as a bill credit now if we retire 2021 in February.
Well, no, because the amounts that members get will be completely different.
Yeah, that is true.
The amounts what, Jeff?
The members will get will be, you can be going from $6 to $37. Everyone would get 37 if we did a facility charge.
Which is the comment I made before and why I voted against it last year, because it's not, it's not
It is when they're paying those facility charges in all year and we have extra cash.
procedurally, I don't believe it's the policy we have in place on how we're going to distribute capital credits. It deviates from that.
Correct. So if you give it back,
I voted against it last year.
if you give back a facility charge, the $37, which is a fixed cost no matter what. So think about how these bills are created, right?
It's not, there's no relativity.
$37 you pay on your bill for things that if we sell zero KWH, zero, that $37 still goes into our fixed, that goes into our fixed cost. That's the whole point of why it's fixed, right? So when you give back that $37, you're creating a subsidy for everyone. If you use the capital credits, that's the most fairest way to give back the dollars,
The excess margin.
the excess margin. It's the most, that's why we do capital credits and co-ops. It's the fairest way of doing it.
So Matt, let's back up to the borrowing and why that is or is not going to happen. I'm assuming that's because the plan is not completed.
Yes.
I'm also assuming that a lot of the bills, there is work being done, but we've not been invoiced for all that work.
A lot of, so this past week, we received a bunch of bills related to one of the major work projects that they couldn't get materials very quickly. I mean, everybody is behind on materials, so a lot of it is not going to get done until the first of next year. They're starting, but they're not going to complete it this year.
I just signed
Capital work plan projects are not going to affect the income statement anyway.
No, but they are going to affect your cash.
cash.
And the right-of-way bills, as they come in, they will affect the,
We're going to be slightly over budget on right away.
So right now, our total plan investment is under 823,000. What do you foresee project that between now and the year end, Matt?
What I looked at this morning was right around 350.
500,000, almost 500,000's come through since October.
For what we expect the end of the year is to be probably between 300 and 350 above budget. That's controllable expenses, not margins, sorry.
Not planned, though.
No.
Ask your question and give
Exactly.
No, we are down 822,698 under budgeted for plant investment.
So you're talking CapEx.
So how much do you think we're going to spend of that, Matt, by year end?
Of that 822, how much do we have?
well, I thought it was going to be a lot less, and then we got a bunch of them invoices after I completed this. So it'll come up some.
You think we'll do half of that?
Maybe. I think there's one of the large projects isn't gonna happen until January. The other one, we didn't think was gonna happen, and then they actually bought materials this last week, so they're gonna probably be about half done. But we're not gonna have paid for probably more than half of it by the end. So it's,
Those are cash flow.
yeah, that's a cash flow issue.
I guess I would just rescind my motion. If it can't be done,
We got a first and a second that was going to ask you.
I'm gonna rescind my motion if it can't be done in 2021. It can't, because I think that the actual,
Whatever the income.
reduce the income to reduce the amount of capital credits.
But I would recommend if we do end the year with the 1.3, 1.2, whatever it is, I would recommend you guys looking possibly at the beginning of the year if you want to do some type of.
Something else we could do, could we still buy the other transformers this year?
Right now, to get things purchased is we're purchasing everything we can possibly purchase.
Okay.
Correct. So remember, every transformer we purchase, RUS makes you take a minus in your income statement because they want you to basically start depreciating it, right? So you have to basically take whatever the labor rate is to install. As soon as you get it in a transformer, and you have to do that. So essentially, the more transformers we buy, the more it's going to hit the income statement as far as a minus. So it's doing the opposite of what.
So it's capitalizing the labor.
Well, the reason they're trying to do that is they don't want you to have 15 years of inventory out back that's depreciating at a very low rate because they know it's losing value, right? So they want you to actually reduce it by your labor. So the more transformers you buy, the more of a minus it is on a controllable expense. It's screwy the way they.
You buy them and it reduces your income or
Correct.
increases your income.
Correct.
They make you depreciate immediately. It's a heck of a way of accounting. But it's what the government says you do.
They're gonna solve healthcare too.
So we pulled up, the LE looks like it's gonna be about 1.3 for year end, which is about 100, or we're about 345,000 over budget, which is, or gonna be about 345,000 better than expected. And then of which there's 170,000 of that is that refund from the trust. So
So 345 under in controllable expenses is what we are planning, right?
yes,
Today,
as of now, yeah,
in control.
Well, that's operating margin.
operating.
Correct.
So that, the trust money that has been paid in over many, many years hits your income statement this year.
Yes.
4 months worth. In 4 months, it all hit.
And that, so you're saying out of that 350, 167 of that is from that trust, which we had no deal over whatsoever.
And we didn't know about it,
Didn't
right?
know about
But
it.
isn't that going back to the employees because they're not paying their?
Not all 167,
Some.
is it? There's more that came
The
back.
167 is just the employer's part.
Okay, so Suzanne rescinded the motion she previously made. Anything else from for your information? All right, we'll go on to the next topics. Safety minute.
So cool moment. I don't know if you guys saw it up on the square. We've been asked to help out on the Christmas lights again this year. So our guys went out and helped in the morning for a couple hours, hanging the Christmas tree lights. I thought those were some pretty cool pictures. Safety minute, it's Turkey Day and some 5 safety tips for for deep frying turkeys to remember. So I don't know, I saw that video the other day that sort of made me laugh, but somebody sticking in a completely frozen turkey into a thing of grease that was way too full and it ignited. So anyways, just a safety moment to remember the safeties if you're going to fry your turkeys.
Okay. All right, next item, approval of last month's meeting minutes. We got a chance to look at that. Motion to approve. Second. All in favor, say aye. Say. So we're ready for the annual meeting recommendations. I think Rachel's.
Rachel, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
I've got the slide deck up. Tell me where you want to go.
Okay. Can you display the slides? So
Yes. Yes, I can. Sorry. maybe. You see that now?
On? Yes, I can see those. Perfect. Thank you. So first we'll review the annual meeting survey results. So we sent the annual meeting survey. Initially, we sent it to every email that we have. We emailed all surveys first. And then we sent mail surveys to those who had not already responded. We had 835 surveys returned, 543 non-attendees, and 292 from attendees, which gave us a 13% response rate. The next slide, you can see a dot map, which represents where the respondents show up in our territory, which is very representative of membership. Next slide, same thing, just a heat map. Go to the next slide. So this is the respondents' demographics based on age, which is in line with our membership demographic. Our average member age is 58, so very in line with our member demographics. Next. The question was, okay, next slide. Am I frozen or are you?
Hey, Rachel, you're cutting out pretty bad, and I don't know if it's me or you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's like you're cutting in and out.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I have 4 bars.
All right, now it's good. Well, it did.
Standing on the
So we should be on slide 6.
Oh, I got that. Yep, we're there.
The number of annual meetings attended. So most of our attendees attended meetings. We did have a 20% first time attendees.
You can just read them.
And
You
this
just said
is when we're saying,
Just read them.
Hey, Rachel, we can't, it's missing like every other word. And
I can just read them. We just email us the slides, maybe.
I can actually go through them too.
Have a question we can ask her.
Well, I think it's pertinent to what she wants to bring up, related to the recommendation. Hey, Rachel, I'm gonna go through these slides. We can't hardly hear you.
okay, well, I'm sorry.
You want to try to call back in? Are you calling in on your iPad?
Yes.
You might want
I'm
to try.
connected. Okay. Okay. Let me just.
All right, so I'm gonna hit
Here.
All right, so slide number 6, this just talks about how many overall satisfaction. I thought this was a great number. So this is the drive-through. So when we talk about the annual meeting, this is the drive-through. So 68% of the people. So what they do when you talk about top box, bottom box, they're looking at, the people that scored 4 and 5. Almost 70% of the folks were satisfied, and then 20 being neutral, and then you're 5 and 6 down there. Voting process, again, and they separated it by non-attendee and attendee, but honestly, the way you vote, it wouldn't matter if you came or not, right? So, it's somewhere in that 70% range again of folks that are happy with the voting process. Reasons for attending the annual meeting. And if you add these numbers up, they're over 100 because you could give multiple responses, right? So 90% was a bill credit. I don't think that surprises anybody, right? That's why people come. Food obviously is the second one. Socialize, friends is down there. Motivating factors to participate in election is actually split pretty close between having the right candidates and having a voice. And then they gave another, and obviously we see that where that's at. Preferred voting options. Mail still kind of wins out a little bit, although Smart Hub and online is pretty close. Majority, everyone's preferred method is these two. Most important annual meeting considerations. Thought this was sort of interesting. I mean, the majors are non-biased election, convenience, which we've seen convenience on a lot of surveys through NRCA. Security is a big deal. People don't want to participate online if they don't have that feeling of security. Multiple ways to participate, and then reducing our legal risk. And there was another, and you can see the percentages there. Preferred method of communication. We ask this every year just to see kind of how do people, or if it's changing. Bill or inserts usually is on top. Email, magazine is still there. Co-op website, and Facebook. You there, Rachel?
Yes.
All right, so we're on the slide for the meeting proposal. Do you want to go through that?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so this is our recommendation based on the survey results, the satisfaction with the member event and voting process feedback that we received. So our recommendation for the 2022 annual meeting would be to hold it on Friday, June 17th, which is consistent with our timeline that we've kept for the last several years. And if you remember, it was the time that we held our member appreciation event prior to combining those two events. We are proposing to hold it at Greensburg Elementary School using their long driveway and parking lot for the drive-through event. We participated in, the reason that we chose this location, it's all pavement, has a very long drive. There would be no winding around, no directional changes. Traffic flows really smoothly through that location. We participated in the trunk or treat event that was held there this fall, and the event was excellent, very smooth, quick. I mean, based on your attendees, it can be quick, or, you know, if it's really busy, then you're going to have a backup, but at least there's a long driveway off a main road. You're not backing up traffic on a highway. So it is free. Tom Hunter has agreed to let us use the facilities that day for free. The theme we're proposing is our co-op, our community. And the election process, we're proposing to use survey and ballot systems and offer early voting options by mail, online, and Smart Hub, which is consistent with what we've done this last several years. And we're also proposing to have on-site voting available at our office on June 16th, the day before the meeting, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So the details are listed right next to that on the slide. You'll see the election, like I said, SBS would be our preferred election vendor. We'll offer multi-purpose or multi-platform voting options beginning May 12th and closing June 15th. That's for the early portion of voting. And then on-site voting would be held at DCREMC office in the community room on June 16th with an survey and ballot systems representative on site to tabulate the votes consistent with their process. So all the tabulation would be consistent. The member event, like I said, would be drive-through at Greensburg Elementary, 3 to 6 in the parking lot. We'll have various engagement and entertainment opportunities along the route. We're thinking like have local talent, high school band could perform as people go through the drive-through, cheerleaders, obviously our employees. We are proposing to have the Chick-fil-A bag meal again. That seems to be very popular. It's easy. They deliver excellent results, fast, friendly service, just in line with our mission. And then the meeting, we are proposing to have an on-site meeting in the elementary school parking lot. So we'd have a tent, chairs, kind of give folks an opportunity to be in person for the actual business meeting again. And that would start at 6:30. If you go to the next slide, you can see the budget based on those that proposal. So we do have a quote for the election process from Survey and Ballot. $18,000 for the election process. If we decide to have on-site voting and the SBS person there to tabulate the votes, that's an additional $3,500. And then we would have that you can see the cost for the member event and the meeting. So the drive-through member event and the actual business meeting held there in person. Those are the budgeted candidate and nominating committee expenses based on prior years. Legal expenses we propose. Bill credits based on $10 bill credits for those who attend the event. And then the annual report costs. So do you all have questions for me? Do you want to talk about things?
We'd like to see voting allowed the day of the meeting instead of having to make 2 trips.
So in addition to the day before, or
If you want to do the day before, so you offer it twice, that's fine, but I think everybody should be, if they're coming to the elementary, should be allowed to vote.
Logistics, that probably wouldn't be. Go ahead, Rachel.
Well, and I understand, that would be inconvenient to make 2 trips, but they do have the option to vote early by mail, online, and via Smart Hub without having to make a trip.
But not everyone
that?
has smart.
Not everyone what?
We're doing a drive-through because of COVID. Is that what we're doing this?
No, we're doing a drive-through because we think participation goes really, really high when you get people.
But if they want to, they can stay for the meeting, right?
Correct.
And so if they want to stay for the meeting, why can't they just vote that evening if they want to?
Do you think from
Like we did before.
Hey, Brett, hold on a second. I can't hear Carl's question.
Okay, say it again.
Okay, if you're having a drive-through and they can stay for the meeting, then why can they not vote that evening? In the past, which was about 3 or 4 years ago when they had it, that meant that you could vote and you had a cutoff time of 5:30 or 6 o'clock, whatever it was. And then the nominating committee counted in votes that were brought in there that evening.
I'm not saying they can't. I'm not saying they can't at all. I'm saying based
Have you
on.
gotten with any of the nominating committee to talk with this, or because they're,
Based on our feedback, based on the process, and based on our manpower, our recommendation is that it would streamline the process to do it this way. But is ultimately the board's decision.
We'll execute it over.
Rachel, what was the time of the business meeting?
6:30,
6:37.
and the event is scheduled from 3 to 6.
that means voting would end at 6 PM.
Not
I'm
for
just
this
asking who would cover the voting during this time that we're having the event?
Could SBS, if we asked SBS instead of the day before, what's that logistics look like, Rachel?
We can definitely ask them.
How did they do that in the past, like 5 years ago or 10 years ago when they had it at the high school? Someone had to man the voting then because that's when you could only vote. So it was the same situation.
So we planned for an hour for people to be entertained. We built in an extra hour to hour and a half of, I'm just going to say it, fluff into that business meeting so that the election committee had time to count those votes.
Jenny, you were a part of that,
So
right?
people sat in the auditorium for 2 hours for a business meeting while they were able to count the votes.
Yeah, but there's not as many votes to count.
There won't be hardly at all if you look at the data.
So the nominating committee could count them that same day with SBS there.
Is
Why would
Do away with the Friday.
Pardon?
Would you be fine doing away with the Friday date and having SBS come just on, or Thursday date and just have SBS coming on Friday?
Yes.
That's what I'm
One or
getting
the other.
at.
That solves trips and
Well, and why
Yeah.
not?
I don't see a whole lot of people wanting to come in here on Thursday and vote anyway.
so that resolves that and we,
If SBS is fine with doing that, like she said.
I see it as being
I'm
an
fine with
opportunity to get some of the, I look at the folks like my, 70s, whatever, they're gonna have a chance to come grab a lunch, do their voting instead of what, it's another way to get some more data. Find out who wants to,
Rachel, does it make sense if you did on-site voting on that Friday to cut it off earlier? You could vote on-site from 3 to 5 and then still have your business meeting at 6:30. Is that logistically possible? If, say, the nominating committee and the SBS representative counted those on-site votes and had them prepared for the 6:30 meeting, is that possible?
Sure. Yeah, I think anything is possible. We can do whatever needs to be done. We'll just figure it out.
Rachel, do you still think the middle of June on a Friday, a Father's Day weekend is the most conducive date? I'm communicating from other members and just in general.
I think it's going to be really hard to find a date that is conducive, period. I mean, in today's society, everyone's busy all the time. I don't,
Actually, you hear both. I mean, when we get our surveyors, people like Friday because they don't have to work on Saturday a lot of times, right? That's why we originally went to the Friday, but then you're gonna have the people that
I'm just communicating from other what.
we thought about that.
And over, middle of June, Father's Day weekend. Is that really the best? When we have from March to August to make that decision?
You'd be fine if it was the Friday before when it wasn't.
I'm just, I'm not sure if I'm just communicating from what other members have told me over and over, which, whether they would or would not attend on any date at all. Honestly, because they probably won't attend either date,
You have to
but
sign this paper that says you're
they
coming.
may say next year, why would you have it on a Thursday? Why would it be on, so I'm just communicating from other members that Friday of a Father's Day weekend in the middle of June is may not the most,
We
you
have,
have from March to August to make that decision.
we have debated on like what's the best. And the one big factor of why we're trying to stay consistent is because people kind of get used to it. I mean, we've done it now for, how many years have we had it on in June on, I mean, it's our fourth, this will be our fourth year on a
So
Friday.
here's, when we, and I understand, Suzanne, it's, like I said, no date is going to be great for everyone, but, we have had an event on a Friday in June for 20 years, whether it was the member appreciation event, which was well attended back when we had that event, or, our new annual meeting event. So it's not new. The data from this year's survey said we had 26% of attendees were new first-time attendees. So I think we're still drawing people. And the overall satisfaction with the annual meeting event was 68%.
Rachel, what do you really need from the board tonight other than the date? Anything?
We don't have to have a decision tonight. It would be great if we could have the resolution for the date sooner
Could
than
you-
later. And
Could you
also
maybe,
the election process, if we do sign an agreement with Survey and Ballot Systems before the end of December, there's a monetary incentive.
so would it be possible that you could get back with the board as far as some options for some in-person voting on the day of rather than Thursday?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And then maybe we could go ahead and approve the date tonight.
And if you guys have, if y'all have another date that you want to throw out, we can, look at calendars really quickly. I know that the weekend, the Friday before the 17th, there was a reason we chose not to propose that date. Brett, do you remember what the reason was? I can't.
There are 2 weeks before that.
Camp. It was the week before.
Camp, yeah.
The week before that is Touchstone Energy Camp, and we will have 2 employees out chaperoning Touchstone Energy Camp.
All right, well, we'll follow up and, with the dates, Rachel. We'll try to come up with a conclusion on that.
Okay.
Okay.
I will get some more information. Am I safe to say that I can pursue more details about on-site voting the day of with Survey and Ballot Systems?
Do we want to include or allow voting to be done here and then move to the on-site? Just on-site?
Well,
Okay,
if
one
we're going to
on-site.
do it,
Right.
if we're going to do it the day of the event, I would suggest doing it at the location that we're having
That
the
looked like,
event.
that looked like the consensus of the board. So, yeah, if you want to follow through with that.
Okay.
Well, thanks for your presentation, and we'll go ahead and see if we can come up with the date.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
So Suzanne, when you mentioned that week, particular weekend, was it because of Father's Day?
It was just
Thank you.
comments I received,
To call that, and
you know,
they didn't really hone in on the Father's Day weekend then per se.
just little on Friday, but
Because and that's what we have done, I think, the past years. You guys prefer a different date?
I'm trying to make a motion to make it to the 16th.
It's actually the 17th.
17th.
Yeah,
Refresh your,
refresh it.
Oh, sorry.
That was my mistake.
All right, whatever day.
17.
Right.
So you're making a motion?
Sure.
17th?
Yeah.
First, our motion made.
I'll second.
Dale seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, so we'll get 17. We'll talk through the rest of the matters when we get additional information. So, ready for the CE report? CEO update.
All right, so for November, we actually had a pretty busy month with the budget going on, wrapping up the budget. We did do some company-wide training. We actually had IEC here and did some company-wide training. We also did a company communication team building event that was really cool. I was going to put this up as a cool moment. We closed down a half day. We had IEC come in and we basically, and you guys can chime in here, but we basically put together bikes on teams, and you had to kind of communicate. They force you to communicate to get the parts you need to get your bike together. So we went through some training. We did that, and then we actually donated the bikes that we made to a charity here in town. So it was really cool. I thought it was a good team building event. We had all the guys in the back and everyone participate, so it was pretty good. Steve and I participated in the IEC annual legislative appreciation dinner in Indianapolis. I thought that was really good. We got a lot of talking time in front of Gene Lysings. And then again, priorities really been about drafting the budget, which you received tonight. Strategic planning is still scheduled 15th and 16th. The other thing I was going to mention that took a lot of my time, the right of way and the construction work plan projects have really been challenging over the last month or so. The right of way contractors are experiencing, just like a lot of companies, turnover, right? So we had to juggle with that. And then the construction work plan contractors are having the same issues we are with lead times and materials. So just like Matt said, we had a bunch of invoices come in today. So they are receiving this stuff, but I don't think they're getting it as quickly as they wanted. That's the CEO report.
Sure.
So as far as metrics, so go back to October, it was actually quite warm. So we were roughly about 8.2% over our 5-year average. If you look at cooling degree days, though, it was quite a bit above, about 47% above cooling degree day. And then if you look at the heating degree day, you're about 38% lower. So sort of an interesting month. You look at the KWH purchases from Hoosier, we were about 5% down from our 5-year average. You can see October here. This is 5-year average. This is October. And then if you look at demand specifically, we were under, again, our 5-year average of about 4.5%. Here's October. Here's the 5-year average on demand side. Year to date, our energy sales, and you'll hear this from Max, about 1.5% under budget. We went from 1.5 to 1.75, so we lost a little ground. which is indicating we had a warmer month than typical. As far as operations and outages, relatively, really, it's been pretty quiet. We've had a number of outages, but the outages just haven't been large or lengthy, is the way I would represent it. So if you look at lost consumer hours for October, we're well below our 5-year average. But then if you look at the number of outages, we're above the 5-year average. So either we're getting quicker or the outages are just minor outages or small. Then if you look at October as far as what were the causes, vehicle and machineries, which it's farming time and harvest time. So typically our vehicle and machinery related outages do go up. So that was our highest. And then trees not in the right of way. The ash tree has definitely made an impact in our territory. And so that's number 2. Our AR past due looks really good. From a 60 to 90 day, 30 day, we're well below the averages. I think some of this has to do with prepay. We've been able to transition some of the members into prepay, which doesn't allow for a lot of this past due to happen. So I think we're seeing some of that now in our numbers pretty consistently. We are beating the heck out of from a 30 day and a 90 day, the 5-year averages. Again, I really contribute that to prepay. So then if I move to the project updates, so pole replacements, good news on that one. As of last week, we're roughly over 50% complete on our pole replacements. I'm sure you guys have seen D&T out. They're getting those poles replaced pretty quickly. They had their materials ordered on site prior, so they're not having as much trouble as the folks that are doing our construction work projects. So for pole replacement, they are planning on being complete by the end of the year. So next year, we'll just have 2021 rejects for next year. Construction work plan, you just heard that. So there's 3 projects. Project number 1 is the 1.87 miles that we're reconducting on the G1. That one is on track to getting completed. Project number 2 is the new circuit coming out of Washington substation. That one is the one that Matt was talking about. And that was going to end up getting shoved over to 2022. We've had a nightmare getting the materials on that one. It was the last one they ordered. And then project number 3, which is the 3-phase copper in Sardinia. Actually, if you go down to Sardinia, I just drove by through there yesterday, and we've got a lot of the poles laid out. So that one, again, they're starting up. They've started. A little questionable. I've got it on caution here as far as if we're going to get that done by the end of the year or not. Moving to strategic planning, again, we got our projects or our event scheduled for 15th and 16th. Some stuff that we've added, as projects percolate up, I wanted to kind of go through. So Crystal's working on a new member sign up. So traditionally, like most co-ops, we do a paper application. Folks have to actually come into the office. So what she's working on is there's a feature through what we already pay for today through NISC that allows folks through Smart Hub to actually sign up as a new member, and they can actually do it completely through a computer, not have to come in. So she's currently in testing on that system. I asked her when we thought that would get completed, and not completely sure if we'll get that done by the end of the year. It's something that we added to the project, so there wasn't necessarily a commitment date on this one. But anyways, it's looking very promising that will be something to add to our list of things. 2022 cost of service study. So you guys approved CADIS last month. We have communicated all but one of the bidders that, we went with a different company, and we started communicating with CADIS a little bit. So not a whole lot of work's going to go on in the next couple of months as far as on this one. Audit timing changes. RUS did approve it. You want to give this update?
RUS approved it. We've talked to the auditor. They're still gonna come out in May and do the balance sheet of 2020 and 2021. But then they'll come back the following year in January or February and do for 2022. So we won't have an audit report until February, March of 23, but they're going to do some work in between, so there's less in busy season. So that went well, I think. Thank you.
Then the broadband feasibility study, we had a kickoff meeting on 11/16, so last week with NRTC. Mainly that was to get all the contacts down, to kind of go over what the first steps are. Chris is working with them to get data over to them. That's kind of the first step, is just getting our mapping data and everything to them. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Any questions on any of the other projects that I didn't go over?
Any questions at all? Okay.
Did you give a timeline? What's the time frame on the cost of service that you said that was gonna happen for a couple months? So what's his delivery date? Like, expect this work to be completed?
We haven't even had an initial kickoff yet.
I emailed him and he emailed me back. We went back and forth like twice. He sent me what he's gonna need. He said, as soon as your year's over, you can get this together. So,
Okay.
and he said, we'll discuss more at that time. So
I'm assuming he's going to be working with Hoosier already, just to kind of understand we got the new rates now. So I'm assuming he's going to work the next couple of months on that. Just understanding the changes there.
So realistically, when can this be implemented?
I mean,
It's the implemented of April 23. That's the drop dead date, because that's when the Hoosier new tariff goes into effect.
So when can we target implementing? If we can do
would
it
say
quicker.
April. You'd want it to be in alignment with theirs.
It won't be changed until then. That's why we're trying to.
Of April 23.
But Jeff, to answer your question, that's a good question that I probably need to think through, because we've got to give enough time in between that implementation day and when we're done with all of our. So to your point, I need to start putting together kind of a schedule of deliverables. I'll take that action, because I know a year sounds like a long time from now, but it's going to fly by. So I'll put together key milestones, key report outs to the board, a draft, and then if you guys want to curtail a little bit.
Or you see major changes in your rates?
Yes.
Yeah, we just approved them. Yeah, they're changing significantly. That's why that's the whole reason we need to do the cost of service next year. I have to do it.
Good changes.
All right, thanks, Brett. Matt, what's the update?
Ready?
Yep. All right, so first we have the balance sheet. In general, there's not a lot of significant change in the plant or our total assets or our total liabilities. For the general difference between the month of $10,000 in assets and liabilities. Does anybody have any questions on this that they looked through, or in general, it's pretty well about the same as last month? Next, we have our statement of operations. Operating revenue year to date is $27,892,000, which is about 5.6% under the budget. Power costs are $20,100,000, which is about 7.9% under the budget. Our gross margin, $7,791,000, is about $69,000 ahead, or $70,000 ahead of budget, or 0.9%. Controllable expenses, $4,052,000, which is about $601,000 under budget. And that is below budget primarily due to payroll and timing of expenses and the benefit trust. So, as well as the right of way timing. Fixed expenses, $2,353,000, about $44,000 under budget. So our total operating margins, $1,385,000, is about $715,000 ahead of budget. So does anybody have any questions on this? Next, we have cash flow. Cash is down about $191,000 for the month. And that's mainly due to decrease in the cash. Cash is just lower. I mean, yeah. So our metrics, you can see that our sales are below 5-year average as well as the budget. But you can also see the power cost is as well. So gross margins are a tick ahead or pretty well right in line. But you can see with the green and the blue line, they're pretty well right about where they were expected.
So this, since I've been here, I'm sorry, I just want to stop. This is indicative of the fact that our rates are built very well. I mean, when the cost of power, or when our sales come down, I mean, right, our sales are variable. So our rates have to be variable, right? As they've come down, our power costs have followed it very well to the point where, I mean, we're bringing in gross margin is what we need to run the business, right? We're bringing in what we've expected. Problem is with COVID and some of the other things that are very hard to predict, our control, it's not a problem, it's a good thing, right? Our controllable expenses are way under, but this really shows that our rates are performing very, very well. We're bringing in what we expected from gross margin. I thought that was cool because we're way different than what budget was. But it compensated, right? And it shows it here too.
So here we're total, our kilowatts sold are 1.75% under. The commercial is higher as the residential a little bit, but the industries are lower. Here's our controllable expenses and the cumulative year to date. As you can see, it's under the 5-year budget or under the 5-year average as well.
And this is where that right of way should.
And that's where the right of way is not there. Everything else is pretty close. Don't really, I don't think there's much on that one. And this is what we expect our cash to do the remainder of the year. As you can see, we took out any loan draws, as we don't expect to draw out any loans the remainder of the year. And it's due, as you can see from the far left column there, it's due to the fact that we haven't spent what we budgeted, and I lowered the LE this month because I didn't think we'd probably get, I'm probably going to adjust the LE a hair higher next month because I think some of the things are going to happen that I didn't think were going to happen. But in general, it's going to be under budget, and the LE is probably a hair low, but it's going to come in about halfway there. So. Any questions on?
You go back one. I can't read that up there. The 1% of, read that. I don't know what that says.
That's the
One capital reserves. It's from the policy.
Yeah, but what does that for?
470,000.
Okay. And you're gonna end at 1 million?
Just shy of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving pieces with this construction work plan. I mean, they are trying to do their best getting in materials and getting started, but it seems like every time they get a batch of materials, they start going out and getting some work done, and then they're held up from materials again. So it's a constant battle. They're going to fight with it for the rest of the year, I'm sure, and probably next year.
The other thing with the cash that you don't see here as the monthly balance, we pay that to zero almost every single month. We run our cash to zero from when we start to pay Hoosier because we get a discount if we early pay. We don't have enough to completely early pay them, but we pay everything as quickly as we can to get as much of a discount as we can.
Right.
So there's probably what, a week span where we have no money every month? So,
And you'll see in our budget, we're requesting to move this up. We do not believe 1% that was set how many years ago?
last I saw the policy was, I believe, 9 or 10 years ago. I don't have it.
But that's all wrote up in.
Doesn't seem like a lot of,
It's not a lot of money, I don't think.
it's not even 1 month's power, not even close.
It's not 1 month's regular
Payroll.
expenses. That's the,
The loan power.
yeah, power bill's about 8.1 million on average every month. I don't, and that's the last time that policy was reviewed. I don't know when that policy was set. I mean, it might be 20 years old, so.
Any additional questions for Matt?
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
All right, so the next item is capital credit.
It's me? Oh, all right. Is it okay if we kind of talk about Hoosier and do the Hoosier report while we talk about the capital credits? Is that good? Because it kind of all goes together. We did have board meeting this month, we talked about and approved unanimously the new tariffs, which will be implemented in April of 23. So we're trying to coordinate that with our new cost of service. This firm is familiar with the Hoosier tariffs, and hopefully we'll get that all aligned. We also approved the 2022 through 2026 budget. The regulatory accounting for Miriam's decommissioning, and the scheduled retirement of 1996 capital credits of approximately 6.5 million, as well as a special retirement 2019 of approximately 7 million. So that's what you see on call to order as far as the resolution for the retirement of these capital credits. If you plug my iPad in, will it show up on the screen?
No.
Or can you show that,
Yeah, I can get it.
the email that was sent from John Jackson? Can you show that?
I don't have that.
Sent on November 22nd, kind of outlines where this capital credit money is coming from and why.
I'm sure I've got it.
Okay. Can we forward it? I can.
I got it on 11/22.
Sure.
That's what he said.
Phase 2 and 3.
Yeah, that's the one. I just want to share this spreadsheet if we can. This is our allocated capital credit amount, so I don't know why we can't.
No, you can't. Is that it?
Yeah, so there's a letter explaining the 96 capital credits, 346, 512, and the special distribution of 2019 of 321, 959. Special distribution does not mean that it's extra from Hoosier. This is an accelerated retirement of capital credits. So let's go to the next page. So this is our allocation amount from Hoosier. So the way Hoosier does the capital credit retirement is it's averaged over a 10-year period. So you're going to see 1990 to 99. Those are average at 346, 512. That's what we're operating in right now. 2000 to 2009, 281. So see what happens in 2010? It goes up significantly. That is when Hoosier enacted the 4% margin. So our capital credit allocation for the 2010 to 19 period is significantly more than it is now. So Hoosier is going to start paying. That's where the special retirement comes from. It's it's just speeding it up. It's not a special retirement. So we're going to start with 2019 and work backwards. So it's a 7 million total, and our share of that was your resolution. So that will come off that 1.1 million, that annual. So when we get to those years of retirement,
It's gonna be less.
that part will be gone. But this is how Hoosier does it in a 10-year average. Those are what the blocks look like. So I wanted you all to be aware of that. So that's where the money comes from that is on the resolution. Part two of that, Suzanne and I had a little conversation about this a minute ago. About 3 years ago now, the board stopped returning Hoosier capital credits to the members. And we said we were going to reevaluate. We were going to do that for a couple of years and we were going to reevaluate. So now that we're doing the accelerated, it's probably time for us to think about paying those back. And that's where that resolution comes from. So the board has the option to pay all of this, part of it, do something like Suzanne suggested and start in June and see how we are. If we want to do some other kind of, I don't know. That's not my decision. That's the board's decision, but those are the numbers. I would support paying the 668, 472 back, but the board also needs to realize that if we do that, then our retirements for 22 are going to be in the neighborhood of 1.2 million, which would be the second most we've ever paid back. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It may be great, but as we're thinking about equity numbers rising too, it's probably not a bad plan. And we can, maybe we have the flexibility to do that now. Maybe it's a good idea.
Maybe I missed it, but when do we get this from?
This will be paid, this will be transferred our account January the 22nd.
Yes.
And also, a lot of times in January, Donna and her staff would come and, we do the thing. They're coming in March. They're coming for the March board meeting. So Donna and some key staff, and that'll give us an opportunity to talk about this retirement, the stranded recovery costs from Miriam and how that's going to affect our rates, the new tariffs. We can do all that at that time. Or we can talk about it anytime as far as that goes, but those folks will be here at the March meeting, but the funds are going to be transferred to DCRMC in January.
We could technically refund them in February.
I'm not the accounting person, but yes.
I would like to see us,
I guess depending on when they're allowed to, how long does it take for bill credits to go through?
Well,
2 months? That's a Crystal question.
Maybe we should.
I'd like,
But maybe it would be as soon as we can instead of.
and I'm good with that. Again, I would like to see this, that we pay down based on the years we're getting paid for. That way it brings our big numbers down.
Well, this is just going to come off your Hoosier side. not
Right, but I'm just saying, it comes down, it brings that $1 million down to,
what we're getting from them.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
so then we are not caught. I just think we pay it back as soon as we can.
It says 93 on this resolution.
yeah, 93, I think was the big, it was like 1 point something, and it was the
For
old.
our 93?
No. This strictly goes against Hoosiers.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, our 93 is
Peter County already,
out, so that's,
no,
okay.
this is strictly pay down Hoosier capital.
So that's Hoosiers 93.
Based on
Not our.
Yes.
My comment about the 1.2 versus the 1.3, the second most we've ever paid, that is cumulative of what what DCRMC's retired in total in a year. 2 members, this will be the second highest ever.
But it's more than likely going to be an annual event though.
That's the plan.
Yes, but I mean, so we support their plan.
We do support. Yeah, the sooner the better. So the way this is set up, this has to be reviewed and approved every year by the board and by RUS, because RUS wants to make sure that Hoosiers in a good enough financial position that they can afford to do this. So as long as all those things work out, it's possible that we will continue to get this annually, yes, until that 10-year period is retired.
Is everybody comfortable with the motion being made?
I would like that. 2 things. Sure. One, if depending on broadband, if we do something like that, we may wish to have more cash. Or there's also, you do not necessarily have to pay back the Hoosier credits too. Is that my understanding?
That's correct.
So, well, I just wanted those as options.
Initially, Matt, and I'll be honest, I wanted, because we have not done this for a few years, at least 3.
Here's the map.
See it.
At first I was in favor of retiring, passing through the first one and keeping the second one until the second half of the year to see where we are and then send it back. But I'm okay. I've been kind of preachy about our equity number and it's costing, we're expecting members to finance more of the RMC. So I think I'm okay with passing this all through, giving them some of their money back.
And financially, I don't think it's an issue whatsoever. I just wanted that to be.
I support the resolution and be happy to make a motion if the board is.
Hey, Jeff, when you were talking about, that's the 93, right? So we owe this in that year.
No, this is just looking at the Hoosier side.
Correct. This is the user side.
Okay.
So this is what we owe members in 1993 for.
Okay.
So that's the reason I picked 93 was because it's one of the largest and it's the oldest.
So that entire amount would come off of 93.
Correct.
Six.
That's what the residents.
Yeah, and I think that's what you said they wanted to do. Pay the biggest,
I don't, I'm gonna match what they were paying,
with the year.
with how we're gonna be getting it back.
I didn't hear you quite.
We can,
Half dozen. of
Yeah,
them, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
it doesn't matter either way. I mean, if you wanted to do that.
So I think that's.
Well, but that's back when capital credits were allocated based on consumption too. So a huge portion of that,
Hoosier still is.
I didn't think it was.
Hoosier is.
Oh, scroll down a little bit on that spreadsheet. if you can. So then, yeah, in 2010, we start to see the,
Then you go on down to 2019.
yep. See, it's all 900, 1.1, 1.3, 1.2. And in 2020, we reduced the Hoosier, we voted to reduce the Hoosier margin, so that's probably.
But you could align, you could do exactly what Jeff said if you want.
Start paying on the,
No, pay. So that letter that you had us show,
yeah,
pay it back the exact way that's taught.
2019.
Right.
And they're
You can
gonna
do it.
go backwards. So next year we'll get retirement for 18.
Do you want to do it that way? I mean,
That would be my preference.
that kind of makes sense. So just pay them back so update the resolution, match this.
To make it, instead of 93, make it 18.
Be fine.
The rest board thing, you guys kind of good with that? Very good with that.
So I'll make a motion
We want to make a motion?
that we pay based on the amounts we're receiving from Hoosier on the two separate years. And the same amounts
As soon as,
as soon as possible.
as soon as they can do
They
it.
get it.
We're not gonna say January.
So realistically, February, but the latest March.
Upon receipt.
Quarter one of 22.
I'm good with that.
So the amount that's presented, plus what 2 years they would, I think the 2 years is.
Basically, it'd be
19 and 96, right? Those were the two that were in
2019
the 19.
2019.
and 1996. As is presented in the,
Wasn't our oldest year 93?
Yeah.
maybe that's what it was instead of 96. I don't know.
Well, the letter's 96.
So we pay back 93,
You don't have to.
2019.
These aren't, this is permanent equity in Hoosier, so we
But
have to pay back.
right, I understand, but 93 was the oldest
Correct.
and it was a big number as well.
1.4.
So do you want to do 96 to be consistent versus 93 and reduce?
I think don't we have to do part of the last year that?
I don't think so for the Hoosier.
I think that's just for our, this is for ours.
So my recommendation would be to do 93 in 2019.
Okay, so your motion has to, okay, 93.
Does that make sense, Brian?
What's the other year?
2019.
93 on here. So we're just gonna carve out the 2019 portion.
So we have a first, second. Second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right. So we got that. All right, we have some, review.
Yeah, I can go through these. if you
Yeah,
like.
I'd like to.
With our new software for Policy Tech, these are coming up for review now, right? So we put them on a schedule so that we can get through policy within the next year or two. I forget exactly the time frame. But so they're starting to come up. So you guys are going to see these pretty ongoing as far as changes. So the only change on this first one, obviously you're changing the title there. The second change is, if you see there in what was A, each REMC vehicle shall carry a policy manual at all times. So because we have Policy Tech, we refer to everybody, we give everybody access to Policy Tech, and we refer to Policy Tech, so we don't have to worry about revisions and cars being updated and all that. So we've been doing that for a long time. So I'm just scratching that. And then that's really the only change.
In that same section, just for clarification, it does state all board approved policies shall be incorporated into a policy manual that is distributed. And you're saying.
You probably do want to.
So we might want to update that and reference.
While we're doing it, I mean,
Update on the dashboard or something.
I look at it as a policy manual that's distributed to the board, is to call to order, but you may clarify.
And I'm fine with that if you guys are as well.
Or we could update it just to say access. Policies will be developed and placed in written form. All, which it is, right? All board approved policies shall be incorporated into.
All board approved policies shall, board members shall have access to all board approved policies. I mean, just as long as we have access to them, would that be equivalent to whether it's dashboard written?
Right, I'm good with that.
Go back on the tape and get that exact word because I like this.
All board approved policies shall be incorporated. All board members shall have access to approved policies. Shall be incorporated. Something of that sort.
So if we redline that in conjunction with the other. Somebody want to make a motion, changes, or is there anything else in that policy that anybody else saw? Making a motion,
I'm making a motion with the
additional change.
additional change that board members have access.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those saying, right, operations policy.
Right, so the second one's basically the same thing, just change the title and then again, not printing these things out anymore.
Need a motion for approval. First.
You need a second.
I'll second. Jeff, you made a second. Approval of operating policy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say. We're with that. Policy 2A, members access.
So yeah, 2A, it's, I think, a bit confusing of what document you use when members want to access. This is one that we put on the website. So the only change we're doing is adding an appendix A with the form that we typically use if asked, right? That's it. It's so that no member has to call in here, get a form and then fill it out, right? They could go to the website and that form is going to be attached to the policy, telling them what to do.
So this already exists.
Form already exists, yes.
But not in.
Not in the policy.
Now it's part of the policy.
Can they still come in and get it?
Yeah, sure. I'll print it off. Yeah.
Oh, that's fine, just double checking on.
Yep. Again, this one just came up for review and I'm like, why don't we just put this in the policy instead of having people wonder how to get it?
Okay. Motion.
Second,
Second.
Diane, second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same. Okay, we're good with that one. And then the report out policy 1018.
So basically in 1018, we have to report out yearly to the board that we are compliant to the policy for employee drivers or CDLs. So we do use IEC's regulatory compliance for compliance to this policy. And I'm just reporting that we do the drug test randomly per IEC's regulatory body does that for us. And then CDL drivers are all up, have all requirements met.
Okay, so report it out. Good with that. You're up.
All right, so we met as a team on November 16th to go over our risk management plan. Just to review, during these meetings, we reevaluate our current risk. And then we identify and evaluate any new risk, right? So that's what we kind of do when we go through these. So on basically taking action on 11, several of them you will see in the budget. And then we updated one of the risk just based on the fact that we placed it on the backlog. And then we've been able to close one. If you guys remember, there were some questions on the Indiana unclaimed property. And what we did find there is it's basically really a non-issue because all capital credits and or membership refunds are exempt from the Indiana unclaimed property. So we went ahead and closed that risk out. So in summary, and there was no new risk added in this last month quarter. So management believes we have mitigations in place to operate at acceptable risk level. We have identified some projects that need to be resourced and discussed in our budget review and potentially become 2022 projects. Questions? Ready?
We already heard Jason in the future, right? And you'll see that the minutes are out there from the last IC board meeting. Did not have another one. Of course, the annual events coming up on the 6th and 7th December. And as Bill alluded to earlier, we did have the legislative update. Spent a lot of time with Gene Lacey. I don't think there were any director training conferences that anyone attended. Is that correct? None? We're ready to adjourn.
So I had one other thing real quick. So the 24th deal, when Donna and Hoosier staff come, they are wanting to have like everyone come early, maybe have a meal, like hors d'oeuvre kind of snacky thing. So keep that in mind. And then on the 16th, we are going to have the employee meal, but unfortunately we can't use the same vendor. So everyone's going to have to just make a side dish.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
I didn't think you were.
I'm kidding.
Yes, but I did.
Yeah, fair enough. So Stone's is going to cater that event for us.
And what time did you tell them? Did you give them a time?
I tried to push it as much as I could, but it's being that that's a Thursday, that's a little sticky.
Uh-huh.
So we may end up it may be here and then we'll take their stuff back. I think we've maybe done that before.
Okay.
We won't be, we're having like pie this time, so. I'm gonna get a head count from Rachel and, I don't know who else is gonna be here from the strategic deal, but, we'll make sure we have enough. So that's awesome.
Anything additional?
Thanks for handling that.
Thanks for playing.
Oh, wow. That money you're getting back in.
Well, I splurged for the tots. I thought, okay.
All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll do it.
Jason. Go first as
I'll second.
second. Suzanne. Meeting adjourned, everyone. We will be going into executive session here momentarily. We take a quick 5-minute break.